One of the most unhealthy things that I feel has developed, it's kind of a trend in the personal development industry these last few years, is this idea that we should treat people as disposable and kind of cut off anyone that's not on a similar path or has the same ambitions as us. And this often gets convoluted and mixed up in conversations about standards and boundary setting and all of these things. And it's funny because people will simultaneously criticize cancel culture, but then cancel their friends, clients, relationships. And this is where I think we have to have a conversation from the perspective of maturity because we've become more and more quick to just seek easy answers. And the truth is, there aren't easy answers in everything. It's true that who you surround yourself with impacts you, it impacts your mindset, it impacts your perception of what's possible, how you think and speak, and ultimately the direction of where your life will go. But it's also true that we are communal beings. One of the traits that we were selected for naturally via the process of evolution was friendliness. It is one of the key qualities in our biology. We are tribal creatures who evolved to function in communities. And so when you bring this in, this constant severing of relationships and ties, there comes a point where you can easily lose connection to who you truly are. And I feel like we're seeing that more than ever in the online space. I know I am not immune to this. I definitely, particularly this last year, bought into ideologies that really didn't serve me and led to making decisions that I have learned deep and painful lessons from. But the beauty is that I get to come back to me. What got me thinking about all of this was this conversation in the coaching industry about integrity. And I think we often are so quick to just jump on trends and, everybody's talking about it. But it just really got me thinking, what is integrity? And a lot of the times, the way that I find that I understand something the best is if I can figure out what the opposite is. So I had to ask myself the question, what is not integrity? And I realized that it's hypocrisy, which is something I think that we all consciously understand. It's saying one thing and doing another. But this was really interesting to me, and this got me thinking. And something that I've really learned in the work that I do is that no thing ever looks bad on the surface. No one's ever like, hey, we're greedy, come be greedy with us. Hey, like we're bad people, come be bad with us. Things never look like that. They're always alluring. There's always a series of justifications and thoughts and ideas that you buy into in kind of a gradient of intensity before you really buy into an ideology. And usually what I would call the justification lie, or just simply the justification of that thing, sounds quite good once you believe it. And so I started asking myself, what is the justification of hypocrisy? And I realized it's do as I say, not as I do. And this was a hard pill to swallow for me because as an ex-dance teacher and choreographer, this is something that I kind of lived by, honestly. And it's a little bit different in dance because, you reach this point in your career where you're not 20 anymore and your body can't do all the things that you used to be able to do. And so a lot of choreographers, they sort of model the movements and they direct and you create really colorful language and you use a demo person. And so do as I say and not as I do is literally part of how you work. And so I had just accepted that. And that was something where I was like, yeah, this is fine. This is fine. But I started looking at this in the broader context of, okay, well, what happens when you're talking about how cancel culture is wrong, but then you're canceling your friends? What about when you're talking about leadership and integrity online and saying that this person's bad, but then you're going into that person's community and poaching their clients in a duplicitous way? What about when you're preaching love and unity consciousness, but then you're cutting people down who you don't agree with? What about when you're talking about higher consciousness and understanding and leadership, but then you're using shame to get your point across on the internet? And I think this is a difficult conversation that we all need to have, and more so that we all need to reflect on for ourselves and go, what do I think? What do I believe? Where is my moral compass? Where is my sense of right and wrong? And am I following it? If there is one thing that I have learned from working with subconscious stories and getting to see the inner world and the truth of so many people, it is that we are far more suggestible than we realize. We don't want to believe it. We want to have this idea that we have such a strong sense of self and that we know who we are and that no one can influence us. But the more that you believe that, the more susceptible you are to manipulation. You're soaking things in all of the time. And the most simple principle by which your mind learns is via repetition. Repetition, 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 repetition. And so the more times that you're exposed to a thought, to an idea, to an ideology, the more likely it is to become familiar to you. And even if you're consciously saying to yourself, I don't agree with that, the very fact that it's become familiar, that it's something that's even in your awareness, means that it's penetrated the first layer of defense. Our greatest strength, our greatest power in mitigating this process is our awareness and where we place it. And so many of us are drawn to the things that we don't like. We go, I don't like this. Let me look at this. I don't like this. Let me get mad at it. But placing your attention on that is the very thing that's bringing it more and more into your experience. And so we've got to be really intentional about what we consume. And I often think back to things that have gotten in and been like, how did I buy into this? But when I really think about it, I go back and I was like, there was this red flag. There was this part of me that went, that's icky. But I thought, oh, let me, in the name of open-mindedness, let me listen, let me listen, let me listen. And let me see what this is about. Maybe this person does have something to say. And there is a power in open-mindedness. And this, again, is where we have to have this conversation from a place of maturity. Because if we're only closed and we only ignore everything that makes us uncomfortable and we only listen to the things that we believe in, then we never grow and we kind of live in this bubble. And that's not productive either. And so I think the question becomes, how do we keep a degree of open-mindedness while not losing critical thinking and discernment? And I think this is a real problem that all of us face in the modern day world of information overload and of just so much content. And I'm not claiming that I have the solution to this because I think this is a problem that's much bigger than me. But what I do know is that the solution isn't easy. And in a time where we crave ease, where we just want the easy thing, where we want to be able to just be like, oh, this is good and that's bad. Let me listen to this and not that. I think this is the time that we have to lean into the hard thing and define ourselves, to look inside and go, who am I really? What do I stand for? Really, if I do create this, when I get to the end of my life and I look back, what do I want to have stood for? How do I want to have gotten here? If I continue on the path that I'm on now, will I feel good about this? The truth is, it can be hard to sort through all the noise and ask yourself, what do I actually believe in? What do I actually stand for? It can be hard to really and truly think for yourself in a world where we've been trained to follow breadcrumbs of dopamine from one entertainment hit to the other. But I think that this might be one of the most important things that we ever do for ourselves and for the world. This is a whole other conversation, but there's so many people that are saying that I want to change the world. And I've said this as well. But I've also had to take a hard look at it and go, okay, but how much ego is in that? If the world was more like me, would it actually be better? I think if we want to change things, we've got to start by changing ourselves in a way that's actually beneficial. I often ask myself, what is the most valuable thing that I have to share with the world? And I think if I could teach every single person on the planet to regulate themselves, to come to a place of awareness and self-understanding and equilibrium that I've managed to achieve after a very chaotic childhood and early adulthood, I think that that in itself would probably change a lot of things. But I invite you to really look at what you're buying into, to what you're believing, what you're listening to, because everything has a justification story. Greed, selfishness, envy, vanity. And I think those justifications are more prevalent than ever. And it's not a black or white thing because all of this has existed as long as, really recorded history. But all of those things that have a shadow to them also have a gift in them. It's not true that everybody in the public eye that has visibility and a level of celebrity is evil. It's not true that everybody that has wealth is evil. Those things aren't true. Those are old paradigms that are dying. And so if we're going to be the makers of change and create new paradigms, we need to be really intentional about what it is that we're creating. And it's more important than ever that we're not just putting a new mask on an old problem. If we're going to talk about money and change the distribution of wealth on the planet, it can't be just a new face of greed. If we're going to talk about star power and celebrity energy and encouraging more people to let themselves be seen in the authenticity of who they are, it can't just be a new mask for vanity. It has to be something truly new or something truly old and good that is rediscovered. This last year has been quite a ride for me. I've learned some of the most painful and important lessons of my entire life. And I've kind of had a season of reflection and integration, but I am so excited to be back and sharing this with you because I think there are a lot of important conversations. And I also am an eternal optimist. I see so much good in the world, even in the face of so many conversations that I have with people that only focus on pain and destruction and the negative. I still look at the world and I see so much good, so much positive change happening. But I think the most important thing of all is that we're not naive. And I think too much idealism can blind us to truth. We've got to be able to see both sides. We've got to be able to reflect. We've got to be able to think critically. We've got to be able to use discernment and intuition in our gut and our emotions and our inner compass, all of that. But it's got to be all of it together. It can't be one or the other. We are too fallible as beings. Your intuition is not infallible. Your emotions are not infallible. In fact, they're one of the easiest things for people to prey on. So we've got to use all of it. We've got to use everything that's at our disposal. We've got to really reflect and think critically now more than ever. And it's so easy to decide to go in a direction and then not realize you've gone off course. And we've been taught such black and white thinking that it's so easy then to label everything over there as bad instead of realizing, no, I chose to go this way for a reason and I got off track. And what I need is a course correction, not a complete redirect, not a 180. We're so quick to 180. We're so quick to experience something that we don't like or hardship or realize something's not what we thought it was and just duck out. We need to be better about 1 degree course corrections, going in this direction, 1 degree course correction, 1 degree course correction, 1 degree course correction, instead of just dropping it all and going in a different direction. And I'm saying this to myself as much as I'm saying this to you, but I think it's a beautiful time to be alive. I think there's more opportunity than ever. There's more possibilities. There's more sharing of knowledge. I'm visiting my mom right now, and I was listening to her talk about her partner's daughter and how she had decided to just renovate parts of her house and just decided one day, I'm going to do this, and just tore apart the bathroom and renovated it, and it looks incredible. And I thought to myself, yeah, that's because of the internet, because the freedom of information we have. We have the ability to decide to do something and access genius. I learned photography, videography from YouTube, and some people will criticize that, but there was a time that never would have been possible, that I never could have learned something, a skill like that, not even just whether it's free or not, but from my home. We have so much access to information, but we have the choice of what we do with it. We have the choice of what we do with our lives, and most importantly, we have the choice of where we place our attention and what we let in. So be discerning, be critical, take some time and really know yourself, who you are, so you don't get swept up in it. You're amazing. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Michael Edwards. Bye for now.